Hey guys, it's me, Narvaez-Batario. Before I start this video, please subscribe! Okay, so for today, I will be talking about the differences between a phrase, a clause, and a sentence. Okay, so my husband suggested this topic because he noticed that when he asked his students, his senior high school students, to write, I think 4 sentences about a particular topic, he noticed that his students have been writing phrases. So I was struck by that because these are already senior high school students. They are already doing research papers, and writing a sentence is a very basic thing to do when you do research papers, essays, etc., right? I really want to help clarify common errors and review the basics. And I guess this video is also a perfect review for all of us, especially professionals who are also doing emails right now due to work from home. If there are other people looking for jobs right now, of course, one of the things, aside from a resume or a CV, you need to do a cover letter. And writing a sentence is definitely crucial. Alright? So, I'll still be doing the same thing. I'll be doing screencast, but with a twist today. Okay, so switching to screencast.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a short paragraph. I want you to look at it, read it silently, and tell me, what do you notice with this paragraph? Okay, so have you seen the errors? Alright, so let's start with the first sentence. I love watching movies. Okay, so what have you noticed there? Yeah. I hear is in small letter, and remember, guys, I should always be capitalized. Okay? Now let's go to the second sentence. Because it helps me relax. Because it helps me relax. Now if you are just going to focus on this, because it helps me relax, does it have a complete thought? No, right? I think this one should be part of the first sentence. Therefore, we should remove the period here and change this to a small letter. Now, if you are going to read it, I love watching movies because it helps me relax, then that particular sentence has a complete thought already. My favorite movie is Harry Potter. Okay, if you're going to notice, Harry Potter is a specific name, but the first letters are not capitalized. So again, if you are using proper nouns or specific names such as Harry Potter, you have to capitalize the first letter. Okay? Next, how about you? Okay, so if you're gonna look at this, how about you? Did you see the error? Okay, so this one should be a question mark because you're asking a question or you're telling a question, right? Okay, next, what is your favorite movie? Okay, since we use an exclamation point here, that's how we should read it. But is it the intention of the writer? Okay, so the same with the second to the last sentence. What is your favorite movie should end with a question mark because it's in question form. You are asking a question. Our topic for today is going to be about what phrases, clauses, and sentences are. Okay? Alright, so let's start with phrase. Okay, so a phrase only, remember this, only consists of either a subject or a verb. So, if you are going to look at the following examples, watching a movie, what is it? Is it a subject or is it a verb? Alright, it's actually a verb phrase, right? Watching a movie. Okay, do you see any subject? None. Next, books on the floor. Books on the floor. Okay, so this is, we're talking about a noun, therefore it's a subject. Okay, it's a noun phrase. Books on the floor. Okay, no verb. That's why that's why I said a while ago, it only has either a subject or a verb. Next, the last one. Staring at me. Staring at me is another verb phrase. We don't see any nouns here. Therefore, all these three are phrases because each one only either consists of a subject or a verb. Okay? Alright. Let's now go to what's a clause? This is the opposite of a phrase. A clause has a subject and a verb. Again, it has both. Okay, it has both subject and a verb. It cannot lack a subject or it cannot lack a verb, or else it's not a clause anymore. It's a phrase. Okay. So there are two types of clauses. We have independent clause and dependent clause. Independent clause, aka simple sentence. Okay. Now, when we say independent clause, from the word independent, it can stand alone. That's why it is also known as a simple sentence. Okay? When we say independent clause, yes, it has a subject and a verb. Okay? Another thing about an independent clause, it is considered as a complete sentence. That's why it's also considered as a simple sentence. When we say complete sentence, it has a complete thought. Let's have the examples below. The first one, she is sleeping. Okay. Here is your sentence. She is sleeping. Or here's your independent clause. Again, a clause has a subject and a verb. Now, can you tell me what the subject is? Okay, very good. The subject of this sentence is she. Right? How about the complete verb? Okay, very good. Is sleeping is the verb. Therefore, this is an independent clause, or what we call a simple sentence. Next, the dog is barking at me. Can you tell me where the subject is? Very good. The dog. Okay. And the verb is, okay, is barking is the complete verb. And the last one, Venice loves editing videos. The subject is Venice. And the verb is loves. Therefore, all three are independent clauses, or what we call a simple sentence. Next, let's have the dependent clause. When we say dependent, what do we mean? When a person is dependent on you. Okay, so that person could not do something without you, right? It's the same as a dependent clause. It cannot stand alone. It can only have sense when it is connected to an independent clause. Alright? So a dependent clause starts with what we call a subordinating conjunction. And here are some subordinating conjunctions. Because, although, whenever, since, while, even though, and many more. There are a lot of subordinating conjunctions. That's the first thing that you need to keep in mind. Okay? Also, It cannot be a complete sentence. It's a no-no. Okay, that's why I placed here complete sentence and crossed it out. It cannot be a complete sentence at all. It can only have sense if it is connected to an independent clause. Now, what do I mean? If you're going to look at the first example here, because she is sleeping. This is a dependent clause because first, remember, it starts with a subordinating conjunction. And then, even if it's a dependent clause, it needs to have both a subject and a verb. Remember, clause, whether it's independent or dependent, it needs to have a subject and a verb. Okay? So, again, it starts with a subordinating conjunction. And again, it needs to have a subject and a verb. Okay. So, here, we have she as the subject. She is the person we are talking about. And then, is sleeping is the complete verb. Okay, it is still a clause because it has a subject and a verb, but it is a dependent clause because it starts with a subordinating conjunction. And if you read it as a whole, because she is sleeping, there's something missing, right? Because she is sleeping. What about it? Okay, next. Since there are papers on the floor. Since there are papers on the floor. Again, it's a dependent clause because since there are papers on the floor, what about those papers, right? Okay, but it is still a clause because it has a subject and a verb. So let's see. Again, for it to be a dependent clause, it should start with a subordinating conjunction. And if you're going to look at the example, it starts with since. Since is a subordinating conjunction. Okay? And if you're going to look at this, it still has a subject. The subject is papers. The linking verb is what we call are. Okay, when a sentence starts with there, remember there is not the subject, huh? Okay, we are talking about papers here. That's why papers is the subject. Okay, next, the last example. Whenever Venice edits a video. If you're gonna focus on that and try to understand, whenever Venice edits a video, what happens? So it is a dependent clause because it lacks something, right? But it is still a clause because it has a subject and a verb. Okay, let's see. Again, it should start with a subordinating conjunction, and if you're gonna look at it, it starts with the word whenever. And whenever is a subordinating conjunction. Okay? Venice is the subject, and edit is the verb. See, it's still a clause because there's a subject and a verb, but it is a dependent clause because it starts with a subordinating conjunction. Yes? Okay, so I hope you got that. Now, what is a sentence? A sentence, it always has a complete thought, no matter what happens. Okay, it always has a complete thought. Okay, ideas are clear and understandable. Okay, let's have the first example. She is happy. Okay, just like a clause, a sentence always has a subject and a verb. Because if it lacks a subject or a verb, it's not a sentence nor a clause anymore. It's what we call, again, a phrase. So just like a sentence, just like a clause, a sentence has a subject and a verb. And again, it has a complete thought, and it is clear and understandable. Nothing's missing. Okay? She is happy. Very clear. She is what we call the subject. Is happy, or is here, is the linking verb. So, it's a sentence. It has a complete thought. It's clear and understandable. Next, we have, I love singing, and I join competitions. Okay, how many sentences do you see in this particular sentence? Okay, very good. There are two simple sentences in example number 2. The first simple sentence is I love singing, and the second simple sentence is I join competitions. both have subjects and both have verbs. Alright? Okay, so if you are going to look at the first example, I is the subject, love is the verb. Okay? I is the subject, join is the verb. And when you have two simple sentences in one sentence, it's what we call a compound sentence. Okay? Last example. I am grateful because God has blessed me with friends. Okay. So I'm grateful because God has blessed me with friends. It has a complete thought. It's very clear and understandable. And it has a subject and a verb. I is a subject. Am is what we call a linking verb. Okay? If you're going to look at it, we have one independent clause or one simple sentence and one dependent clause. Remember, a dependent clause starts with a subordinating conjunction, right? So when a sentence has an independent clause and a dependent clause, it's what we call a complex sentence. A dependent clause cannot have sense if it's not connected with an independent clause. Alright? Okay. So tips. Remember, whenever we write a sentence, a proper sentence starts with a capital letter. It's the very basic thing. Okay? And always end it with an appropriate punctuation mark. Okay? Very basic. Number 2. When you're answering questions, please do it in complete sentences. Especially when you are asked to write an essay about a particular question. Please answer questions in complete sentences. Not just in written form, but in oral communication. Okay? Next. Again, a proper sentence always has appropriate punctuation marks. Always. And of course, proper capitalization. If it's a name, a specific name, please capitalize the first letter. It's also the common mistake that I see. Okay, even in higher levels. Okay, if it's a proper noun, capitalize the first letter.
And we're done! Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope that I was able to help you review what are the differences between a phrase, a clause, and a sentence. If you have suggestions on what topic I should feature next, please feel free to comment them down below. Okay? Again, thank you so much, and I invite you again to please subscribe. Goodbye!